Hello there. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jack St. Clair, and I am one of the owners of your Homestead office. As the owner of our two Homestead offices for the past 17 years, I find no greater pleasure in the fact that we are providing employment opportunities to those that want to make a difference in the lives of seniors in Northern Virginia. Over the years, I've been so lucky to employ thousands of care pros. When I started our business in 2006, I had no idea that I would form such close relationships with so many of our care pros. Watching our care pros grow and work so hard day in and day out is awe-inspiring. I'm always floored at how hard they work in the midst of a job that can take both an emotional and sometimes physical toll. On the flip side, working with thousands of people over the years has also made me realize that not everyone has been taught or knows how to end well. What do I mean by end well? When you're trying to get a job, you do everything in your power to make a positive first impression on your new employer. After all, a positive impression goes a long way on whether or not a company is going to want to consider you in the hiring process. Similar to how making a first impression is so vitally important to starting a job, it's equally as important to end well when you decide it's time for you to leave the company. Let's face it, unlike our grandparents who worked at the same place for 30, 40, and even sometimes 50 years, most employees this day and age don't usually stick around a company for decades on end. Regardless of whether you are with Homestead for 1 month or 17 years like one of our care pros, it's critically important that you end well when you decide it's time to part ways. After being in this business for more than 15 years, I've compiled a very important list of things you should and should not do when deciding to leave employment at any job, not just Homestead, but any job. First, always give at least a 2 weeks notice, if not more. This is important for most jobs, but it's vitally important when you have a job working with senior citizens. If someone leaves our company and does not give at least a 2 weeks notice, it causes unnecessary stress and sadness on their client. Now, for a minute, think about your own grandmother or grandfather. Now picture them having formed a really sweet and deep bond with a caregiver. Can you imagine if that caregiver quit with no notice and your grandparent never saw that caregiver again? I've personally seen many clients go through heartache when finding out their care pro left with little to no notice, as it didn't get the client and caregiver the time to say goodbye to each other. It really is a heartbreaking and unnecessary situation that's easily fixed with giving at least a 2 week notice. Second, never ever ghost your employer. It's extremely rude and inconsiderate. And when I say ghost, I mean you basically fall off the face of the earth and never contact them again. There is nothing more unsettling than when someone that we have spent time to form a relationship with, meaning you, our care pro, who suddenly stops returning phone calls and messages. And here's the thing. When this happens, we don't think that you've ghosted us. We actually start to think that something bad has happened to you. The reason that our mind starts to go to this dark place is because we have had situations in the past where Care Pro either hasn't shown up to a shift or they've stopped returning phone calls. And we found out that the caregiver in one instance actually passed away. This is why when you stop returning phone calls or you don't show up to a shift, we will call your emergency contacts and we'll also call the local law enforcement for them to do a wellness check at your house. It would be extremely embarrassing for law enforcement to show up to your house or for your emergency contact to call you, for you to just tell them that you're okay, but you decided to stop responding to your employer. Please, always keep open communication with our office. The third thing is communication, communication, communication is critical. Don't believe the falsehoods that your employer doesn't care about you or a situation that you're currently dealing with in life. Here's a great example. We had a wonderful caregiver who worked for the company Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., with a client that she had formed a deep and meaningful caregiving relationship with. Late one Sunday night, the Care Pro received word that her own father had been diagnosed with stage 3 or 4 liver cancer. Obviously, this caregiver was extremely distraught and beside herself that her father was facing this diagnosis. She called the office the next morning at 7 a.m., and instead of telling us what was going on, she said, "I'm quitting on the spot. I can't handle life anymore." And she hung up the phone. We were flabbergasted and so very worried about her. We attempted to reach her several times, and it took us about a week to finally get through. When she told us the story about her father, we mourned with her because we care about our people. But I wish she had told us that when she originally called out of the shift. Bottom line, I would much rather this particular Care Pro have called out of her shift at the last minute and tell us that she had a family emergency that she needed to tend to and that she would need the next 1 or 2 weeks off than for her to just quit altogether. Now, this story does have a happy ending. She came back to work for the company. We were able to put her back with her same client, and she was even able to serve the client until he passed away. Bottom line, it's important that you end well, especially when working with a company that serves a vulnerable population, such as our aging seniors. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having a mutually beneficial working relationship with you. Have a good day.